Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From the Studio. I'm your host, Corey Riggs. Happy to welcome you into our MC22 studio, and so thankful that you're joining us once again. We have got a jam-packed show for you in this episode, which centers around getting outdoors as we enter this recovery phase of the coronavirus here in the Midwest. We will do that with two interviews about two different ways to get outside, maybe enjoy some time with your family. One is by getting into our state parks here in the Show Me State and knowing what you can and can't do. Our first guest is Missouri State Parks Director Mike Sutherland. The other is an outdoor sport that doesn't always get a lot of notoriety in the mainstream media, but has a faithful, loyal following and is a great way to spend a night by taking the family out to a local or area dirt track. Trenton Berry from RacinDirt.com will join us to talk about the comeback of one of America's grassroots sports in this post-pandemic world. If you're enjoying the show and you want to reach out to us to provide us with new topic or guest ideas, feel free to do so on Twitter at FromTheStudio22. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned. Mr. Mike Sutherland joins us from the studio after this.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Welcome back, everybody, to From the Studio here on MC22. Corey Riggs with you, and happy to introduce our first guest. He is the Director of State Parks here in the Show Me State, a post that he has held since February of this year. Mike Sutherland is our first guest from the studio today. Mike, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. Obviously, state parks in Missouri this time of year are normally humming as the temperatures get nice. Everybody wants to get out of the house, but obviously the coronavirus, COVID-19, has had impacts in every walk of life right now. How has it impacted you and the folks in the state park system?
It has had an impact on state parks, that's for sure. You know, we've kept the majority of our state parks open to day use all the way through this and continue to do so. We did have a time where we did have to close 4 facilities to day use just because visitation was so high that it was really hard to manage the carrying capacity of the parks. But those since opened. Actually, they opened it back up yesterday. That was where Castlewood State Park, Elephant Rock State Park, Watkins Mill, and Weston Bend State Park, and that we made that operational change yesterday. And so actually, during all of this, as far as state parks go, one of the things that people have been able to do and should be doing is getting outside, getting some fresh air. And people have really been taking advantage of that. So we've seen significant visitation at most of our state parks and historic sites around the state.
Mike, would you say the numbers that you're seeing over the last few weeks are above average, right about normal, below average for what you would have seen, say, in 2018 or 2019?
It's a little bit of a mix, honestly. We have 91 facilities located all over the state of Missouri. And so there's a variance in visitation. Some of them have been about normal. Some of them have been just a little bit less, but we've had a significant number of facilities that actually have had higher visitation than normal. And I was at a state park near here, Rockbridge State Park, south of Columbia, just north of Jefferson City, for a weekend and just kind of help with managing visitation and that. And I was really, I don't know if I should say surprised, but certainly saw a lot of folks out at Rockbridge State Park who obviously had never been to Rockbridge State Park because they asked a lot of questions, about where things were and things. And so I think that we've seen a lot of new users, actually, people getting out and discovering Missouri State Parks.
What are some of the recommendations from you and your staff right now as far as what people need to know before they go out to enjoy one of these state parks? Is it I live down the road here in Springfield from a city park. I've seen a bunch of different people out walking, jogging, riding bikes. Some of them wear masks, some of them don't. What are kind of the recommendations on how to go out and enjoy state parks right now?
I think one of the things that people really need to remember is that we all need to be practicing social distancing, and that's not only for ourselves, but that's for others as well. So having respect for others as well. So not congregating in large groups, trying to keep distance between non-family members, that 6-foot distance and those kinds of things. And if you are in a situation where you can't keep that distance or can't adhere to those group size kind of things, that you might use a face covering in those cases. And what applies on inside, I think sometimes people think, well, it's only on the interior or inside where you need to practice social distancing. But really, we need to be practicing social distancing everywhere. It's a little easier outside because there's more space, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be also practicing those social distancing practices, whether you're at a state park or somewhere else outside. So we really encourage people to do that. Everyone's welcome to come to our state parks and enjoy the natural beauty or the historic site. But when you do so, also don't lose the sight of the fact that social distancing is really important. But in most of our facilities, the one nice thing is there's plenty of space. If there's a crowd in one area, go to a different area and you'll find maybe an area where there aren't very many people and you can get that space. And so that would be one of my other recommendations. If you go to it, whether it's a state park, a city park, or a different type of facility, that if it's crowded, if the parking lots are full, if it looks like it could be challenging to keep those social distancing protocols, just look for a different area to go. We have, even in some of our state parks, areas where kind of are the popular areas. And so they seem to have, draw a lot of people, and people kind of think they can only go there, where there might be hundreds or thousands of acres of other parts of the park where they could go and not see anybody. And really, sometimes those are some of the most beautiful places. I speak, again, talking about going to just one facility, Rockbridge, that is close to where I live. There's a part of there where there's a parking lot that's constantly full. It's kind of a popular area, and there's lots and lots of people. And while they might get a great state park experience, they could go just a half a mile away to another trailhead, and there are very few people. They can have a very really probably even more beautiful hike into a whole new area of the park. But it just sometimes people don't really, for whatever reason, do that. So I would encourage people to definitely broaden their horizons, go to places they haven't been if the places that they normally go are crowded.
Yep, you have to be like going out and kind of having the park all to yourself if you just know what areas to avoid and what areas to go to. Governor Mike Parson announced his Show Me Strong Road to Recovery program here for the state. And obviously everything is, the hot button phrase is a slow rollout. I know a lot of people are asking about when can we start camping again as far as state parks go. What sort of a timeline does state parks have as part of the recovery effort, and when might people start to see visitor centers open back up again and things of that nature?
Well, we're currently evaluating that, and we are taking, as we took a phased approach to operational changes to where we were prior to May 4th. We've begun to do change and have operational changes, kind of working our way back to more normal. It'll be a normal within this current context. It won't be the same as it was a year ago, but it more operationally open. And so we our concessionaires are who operate a lot of our lodging facilities are opened up for the most part on May 4th down around the southwest Missouri at Roaring River and Bennett Spring. They'll be opening this coming weekend. And then we, as I talked about, those 4 facilities that we had closed, we opened them up yesterday. So that was another kind of transition. And then we have our campgrounds closed and I know that's challenging, and people really are waiting for patiently, or sometimes in some cases not as patiently for those to open. But we're trying to take a phased, deliberate approach to that. And they're closed at least through May 18th. But then we will be and are currently in the process of reevaluating and deciding how we're going to move forward on that. So I think that there'll be an announcement here coming fairly soon that will give a little bit more direction and people know what we're going to be doing as far as our phased approach to opening our campgrounds back up. But we haven't set a firm date as of yet, although, like I said, in the next little while, we'll be making an announcement on that.
All right. With people wanting to stay closer to home, with people maybe not wanting to fly, not wanting to take a cruise, overseas travel, things that aren't really recommended right now, are you and your team maybe expecting that this summer could be a record summer for state parks here in Missouri as far as attendance?
Well, so far we've seen at some of our facilities, as I've said before, we've seen higher attendance than we've ever seen. And in some cases, just to try to manage the carrying capacity of the facilities, we've had to, sometimes temporarily close a gate to a parking lot when it's full and let it kind of clear out before we let other people in. And we have some facilities that have never had to do that before. So we are seeing high visitation. I think that will continue. As I said, I believe that a lot of people are discovering the outdoors again, and so that it won't, not only Missouri State Parks, but other types of land managers with parks, that whether it be at the national park level or city or county park level, will likely see pretty high visitation. That's a great thing, people getting out, being healthy at our facilities, but it also creates some operational challenges as well. Just because we have to make sure that there's plenty of space for all those people to recreate in.
Mike, before I let you go, where's the best place for people to go to get information and updates on the parks?
If you can go to the Missouri State Parks website, and so that's the best place to go, and that's mostateparks.com. And you can find out information. There's a listing of all of our facilities that are in their current situation. And so as we have things change and update, and that can happen sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, you can find out information there.
The Director of Missouri State Parks, Mike Sutherland, has been our guest. Sir, thank you so much for coming on with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, we'll be back with more from the studio in just a minute. Welcome back, everybody, to From the Studio here on MC22. Our second guest is one of the co-owners of RacingDirt.com, and our good friend Trenton Berry joins us now on From the Studio. Trenton, how you doing, my man?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Well, we had Shane Freeby and I had the opportunity to join you on your website a while back, so I figured it was time to return the favor. As we get started, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what RacingDirt.com is and what you do?
Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity to mention it. It's our 10th year in business. Myself, Trenton, and I have a business partner, Austin, from outside of the area. We've been at it a while, and really the advent of live streaming video took off here, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and has really been instrumental in our success. And much like the Bears do with a lot of their sports and a lot of universities are doing, we provide that service for dirt track racing promoters all across the country. And we have some groups that we primarily work with, and we're always entertaining ideas for new events and cool things that might be on the horizon. But yeah, it's multi-camera productions and crews and late nights and crappy gas station food, right? Like everything you could ask for.
The life of a guy that travels from town to town. I'm familiar with the concept, and Just always happy when you find a town that's got a restaurant that's still open by the time you leave a racetrack, which sometimes can be well after midnight, especially with some of the post-race coverage you guys provide, because it's not just like you guys start with an A main or a feature and that's all you see. You guys are kind of there wire to wire, aren't you?
Yeah, we are, and we'll start about half an hour before hot laps are scheduled to go. And as you well know in racing, that start time is sometimes more of a suggestion than a hard fast rule. So, but yeah, we start there and roll all the way through the night, and then everything has to go on demand to the website for all the people that interact with it. So it's a lot of late video editing, and man, I take a second. I've got a great group of people: Robert Claunch, Michael Jackson, Tyler Rinkin, along with Austin Kruger. I mean, those guys are what really keep the blood pumping for the company and keep us going up and down the road. And it wouldn't be anything without those guys. Just take a minute to highlight them and all their work. They're not only great at their job, but they're good people too. And that's, those are the kind of people you want to be around.
Yeah, it takes a good team, especially that sort of schedule is a grind. And so you got to have good people around you. Well, a lot of the conversations that we've been having on this show for the last couple of weeks are about the suspensions of play due to the coronavirus and what it's done to the NBA, what it's done to the NHL. What sort of impact did it have on dirt track racing? People in Southwest Missouri might realize that it was just about to get started here in mid-March, but obviously in warmer weather climates, you head out west, they've been going since February.
Yeah, no, and it's completely shut it down, for a period of days. We went 55 days in between events, and fortunately, we were back this past weekend with our second and third races back. We did one 2 weeks ago, and it was surreal to just be back. It kind of felt like a little bit of normalcy, but the interstates were really barren. Most of the restaurants were closed everywhere you went. You could do curbside pickup, and hotels. We were at a major hotel chain our first week back. It was a 4-story hotel. They sold 14 rooms while we were there. I mean, it's just unfathomable things, as far as how we interact with society. And then the races were ran with no fans, and that's crazy in and of itself, because I would have never dreamed that we would have had the chance to stream a race with no fans, that would ever be something that was feasible. But I will tell you, these promoters have gotten really creative with what they're able to do. The pit crews have expanded a little bit in the pit area, so they're able to bring a few of their supporters in that way. But the industry's nowhere near what it's like when it's humming along full steam. But a lot of these promoters are taking chances and risks, which inherently, the ones that are really good, that's part of the sport and what has to happen to be successful, because you have to think outside the box continually to make it work in this industry. But Corey, it's been really tough on the sport, and it's been really surreal to be at these past 3 events with literally no one in the grandstands. I can't even imagine that. Masks were not optional the first week; they were optional this second week. So that was interesting too, to see a lot of people when we were in Wisconsin 2 weeks ago walking around with face coverings and whatnot. But everybody's been really respectful, super receptive. A lot of times racers aren't the easiest lot in life to get along with, especially if you're on the other side that handles the money that they get. And but it seems like everybody's been toned down and is really appreciative to race. It was definitely a hard reset on the racing industry for sure.
It is a sport that isn't necessarily hamstrung from the participant side of it with social distancing. A lot of places you can spread the haulers out. The guys are in cars. They're going to be well more than 6 feet apart from one another. But, this is a grassroots sport. Fan support is so important. How do you see this kind of getting jump started back again after doing races without fans? I don't envy promoters or racetrack owners of trying to figure out how to space fans out and keep them from clumping together. I think it's going to be kind of like herding cats, honestly.
Yeah, they'll definitely have their challenges, but it's kind of like Governor Parson, who's done a great job with this Show Me Strong recovery plan. he said, it was kind of interesting, kind of in his own personal dialect, which I loved here about a couple of weeks ago. He said, if you're, a paraphrase here, but basically, if you're expecting government to fix this, you're going to be in for a fooling, he said. And so, there'll have to be a lot of personal responsibility, and the racetracks they'll mandate what they need to mandate and expect everybody to do what's right. But, at the end of the day, you're not going to have county deputies and state patrol at the races to enforce social distancing. So it'll be up to everybody to do that. And, one of the things that I think is interesting, Missouri is actually a little more on the lenient side as far as dirt track racing goes. Obviously, they're not here in Greene County, but statewide, there were several events contested last weekend. I know Rain got a few of them, but they raced in Lebanon, just up the road. So that was one example locally. Some other places practiced. So I think they'll get back going, and this state will be in a little better shape to host some races and probably get the attention of some national series and whatnot that they might not otherwise have at this point in the season, at least. So Missouri looks to be in better shape than a lot of them, but the social distancing and the self-policing aspect of this and not to invade people's personal space will certainly be a challenge, and probably the overwhelming narrative going forward here the 2020 season. Hopefully not beyond the 2020 season, though.
You kind of led right into my next question as far as National Touring Series goes. We talk about groups like the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, the USMTS. You bring up an interesting point with Missouri kind of being one of the front runners of opening back up for business, to borrow a phrase from Governor Parson. Do you think that some of those touring series might find their way back here a little bit more? I know Lucas Oil Speedway was set to host a couple of Lucas Oil late model events, but the one thing, it doesn't matter if it's COVID-19, the coronavirus, whatever, Mother Nature plays a bigger hand in racing than almost anything, and she's wiped out a couple of big events that were on the schedule for this week.
Yeah, and I do think the possibility will exist to be able to do that, and you'll see it at some of your marquee places. You talk about I-55 in Peevely, Missouri, just south of St. Louis. That's a mainstay national racetrack, one of the top places in America. Lucas Oil Speedway obviously had planned a couple of crazy events midweek to get their Lucas Oil Late Model Series back going again, and you just never know. I know Todd Staley is working on some things right now. He plans to make a stop or two here in Missouri, hopefully, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So, yeah, I think we'll definitely be set up to do that here in the state. And, good for everybody in our state for doing what they need to do to the best of their ability, so we can kind of get life back going again. You don't want to make light of the sickness and what's happened in those people's lives that have been touched by it. It's the dirt track industry is not immune. There have been people in dirt track racing that have been directly affected or known people that have been affected by it. So you just want everybody to be as responsible as possible. But I will say, you can't stop life. You can't stop sports forever. You can't stop dirt track racing as a small part of that entire circle that goes around. So I do think Missouri will be in a good spot here, and probably have the entire profile of racing in our state raised because of this, quite honestly.
One more question before I let you go, to borrow a phrase from like professional wrestling. iRacing has gotten a major bump in the last few weeks because of this pandemic. Do you think it's enough that it'll have legs and stick around for a while, or once all the tracks get back open, is that iRacing going to be kind of a distant memory? Like, oh, do you remember when we used to watch the iRaces that were on TV?
Now, if you're asking, do you think Fox Television will carry iRacing on a weekly basis? No chance. I could see some of the ancillary networks doing it. We carried a smaller series that we were a part of with Race and Dirt, and have been running that live on our Facebook page on Sunday evenings. It's been a lot of fun. Viewership is down a little bit as life opens back up, but I think that's to be expected. But, we had 250 some people watching Sunday night at 9 o'clock this past week. And for what we do, I'm pretty pleased with that. Yeah. So, as long as we can keep interest going like that, I'm interested in doing our part to support it. It's certainly got a shot in the arm. What I do think will happen, I think a lot of the racers that Rush bought these sim rigs that they're racing out of, some of them in the multiple thousands of dollars.
They're not cheap.
No, and I think the used market on those will definitely be flooded, because you'll find some of those people that yeah, this really isn't cut out, what I'm cut out to do, but they were just doing it to pass the time. But no, I think iRacing will be there to stay. The one thing I will say, it's fairly expensive to use that iRacing service. It's not a cheap endeavor, by the way.
Yeah.
So, and you have to have a lot of technology and equipment. It's not a simple process. It's not super cheap. So it does have those two things going against it once we get back to racing. But no, I do think overall the profiles race, and it will be a stronger part of American motorsports going forward. And let me say on that with iRacing, I think it's been outstanding that it was there, in a time of crisis for our entire sport. And it was a way for people to interact and engage and not lose sight of what they do. And it gave a little bit of normalcy. It was a different normal, but it gave a little bit of normalcy to people, which was incredibly important.
Well, my man, I appreciate the time. Stay safe in your travels, wherever you're heading to down the road next. And hopefully I'll run into you at a track here pretty soon, all right?
Yeah, sounds good, man. Thank you. This From the Studio series that you guys have been doing is really neat. I've enjoyed watching several of these segments, and honored to be on. Glad you called, and proud to call you a friend, man. Keep on doing what you do. I appreciate it.
Likewise, man. Trenton Berry from RacingDirt.com, our guest here on From the Studio. We'll be back and wrap this show up after this.
At Orange Leaf, we're still swirling, just doing it a little different. Both Springfield Orange Leaf locations are open, offering crew-serve carryouts, party box catering, curbside pickup, and delivery. At Orange Leaf, we're all about making life sweeter.
Kevin here once again for Seeger Toyota of St. Robert. Our service department still has drop-off and pickup available after hours, and pickup and delivery for you locally if you need assistance. We will make sure your vehicle is sanitized before being returned to you as well. That's from your friends at Seeger Toyota of St. Robert. We are here for you.
Well, that'll just about do it for this episode of From the Studio. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at FromTheStudio22, or you can follow along with me at Corey Riggs TV. Please feel free to send us your questions, guest or topic ideas. We always appreciate it. We like to close each show right now by highlighting a group or groups that are helping out here in our backyard and all across the country. In the case of Convoy of Hope, they are helping people on a daily basis, but it's not just right here, but all around the world. In response to COVID-19, they set a goal to distribute 10 million meals to those in need. And believe it or not, they have already surpassed that number as of May 7th. That is simply amazing. They have made meals available to people from Springfield, Missouri to El Salvador and beyond. Just an outstanding organization that is also a 4-star group on Charity Navigator. If you would like to donate to Convoy of Hope and to help their cause, go to their website, convoyofhope.org, and give what you can. They really know how to stretch a dollar and make the most out of your donation. Our final thank yous for this show go out to our guests, the Director of Missouri State Parks, Mike Sutherland, and our good friend from RacingDirt.com, Trenton Berry. And thanks to all of you for watching. Until next time, for our MC22 crew, I'm Corey Riggs saying so long from the studio.